Hello, welcome to another afternoon edition on this hot sunny day. It's probably in the lower to mid 80s, a little bit of humidity today. But anyway, welcome to another edition of Observations of an American Living in Germany. Well, when I was on my way to the gym, where I just left now, there's some construction going on one of the main arteries out of town. And of course, two lanes grind down into one, and you see brake lights and you're like, oh no, and then you see the construction sign. But I gotta say, German drivers have the zipper merge down pat. You get up, you slow down. Yeah, it's irritating when it would normally be a 70-kilometer zone, but you see the construction vehicle, there's a crane blocking the right lane. They've got some men down on the ground working, but all of a sudden it was like one guy goes from the left, one guy goes from the right. It's just like we zipper, and people sort of know what to do. I wish to hell they could do that in the United States. American drivers will go all the way up to the end and then try and force their way in. So inefficient. But nevertheless, I got to hand it to my German brothers on that. They've got that figured out, just like driving high speed on the Autobahn. Which brings me full circle to a couple people I know who have seen my videos, some friends of mine I know personally, plus some people in comments seem to think that, I don't know, I'm getting the idea that they think I'm doing an us versus them, or why the American way is better, or why the German way is better, and that's not what I'm trying to say. They're two completely different countries. Plus, having been over here, I've already been in Luxembourg, I've been in France, I've been in Denmark, I've been in Switzerland, I've been in Austria, been down to the southern part of Germany and Bavaria. I've been to Croatia, I've been to Montenegro, and I've been to Bosnia. Now, it's not every country in Europe, but we're working on it. We're going to go to the Canary Islands in September, and then we're going to be in Italy for Thanksgiving, and we're going to be in Spain for Christmas. So I've been to Italy when I was a little kid, but I haven't been there since. Never been to the Canary Islands, and this will be my first time going to Spain. And my Español es mejor mi Deutsch. So I may be able to converse a little bit with people in Spain with my really horrible Spanglish. But I've been to Mexico 3 times and Costa Rica twice. And I know enough Spanish that most people can understand me, but I'm not anything close to being conversational. It's agonizing, but my Spanglish works a little bit. I can usually get what I want, along with some hand gestures and maybe writing something down on paper. But, most Europeans take it for granted that they know 2 languages, but in America, I should say in the United States, that's not always the case. Some schools offer second language, and the most common are probably Spanish and French. But we do have a lot of native Spanish speakers in the United States. But nonetheless, I have had some people think that, you hate socialism and it's not the same as communism. I get that. But socialism is like capitalism. It's to a degree. The United States is not really a totally capitalist country. It's more like crony capitalism. And we have some socialist institutions. So you can kind of get off in the weeds where, if you're not supporting a socialist state, then you're a fascist. Or, if you don't support total laissez-faire capitalism, you're a commie or you're a socialist. And, sometimes we back into our corners with our definition of words. To me, something being socialist could be a fire station, a public library, a public elementary school, a police station, even the military. But, socialism to me is more like when you have the government doing things that the private sector should be doing. Or you have a government monopoly where the private sector would be better off doing it. I'll give an example. My home state of Virginia, we have a state socialist monopoly on liquor stores. If you want to buy rum, vodka, liquor, whiskey, any distilled spirit, you have to buy it from the state government. That's socialism. Other states have a private liquor store system where you buy beer or wine. You can buy beer and wine in a grocery store in Virginia, but not liquor. And it's one of those things that it goes back to the 1930s, and nobody has the testicular fortitude to try and change it. A couple politicians have tried, but they've had no luck. I noticed here in Germany, you can buy liquor at Globus, you can buy it at Rewe, you can buy it at Aldi, you can buy it at almost beer and wine and liquor at almost any store, even the kiosks, the little, like the bodegas, you know, they're even open on Sundays. You can buy liquor, no problem. And I'm surprised that even with the VAT, a lot of booze is cheaper or the same price as it is in the United States. I actually pay less to buy Jim Beam or Jack Daniels, which come from Kentucky and Tennessee respectively, 5,000 miles away in Germany, than I did in Virginia, which is right next door. Virginia borders Tennessee and Kentucky. That's kind of bizarre, but part of that is because of our socialist liquor monopoly and all the taxes they put on it. But anyway, I've learned a little bit about the German healthcare system, the pension system, and all that. And in some respects it's a good deal, in some respects it's not. But some things that work in the United States aren't going to work in Germany. It's just our constitution is set up differently. We have autonomous states. I know Germany has states too, but we've got 50 of them, and our states pretty much created the federal government. I know it doesn't seem like that with our politicians, but we have a contentious presidential election coming up next year. But the weird thing is, if we followed the Constitution of the United States, it wouldn't matter very much who the president was. The main job of the president is to be commander-in-chief of the military and to execute the laws that are passed by the Congress. The executive branch does not have any legislative authority, neither does the Supreme Court. But yet we have the courts trying to pass legislation through case law, which is not in the Constitution. We have a decision like Roe versus Wade that was the court making law, and our Supreme Court recently overturned that, and it was a big firestorm, and I believe the motivation was sinister. I believe the timing was bad, but they basically backpedaled and said, we didn't have the right to make this law, and they don't. The Constitution does not confer any lawmaking authority on the judiciary, plain and simple. There also is nothing in there about lifetime appointments for judges, yet it's become tradition that if you're on the Supreme Court, you only leave when you die, or if you're almost dead and you want to retire. But it just said they're supposed to serve during times of good behavior. But nonetheless, I'm sure the German Constitution has things for their court. It's just different than the United States. Just like the German, I would love to see the drinking age be 18 in the United States. Not because I want more teenagers to drink, but because at 18, you're an adult. You should be an adult for everything. Drinking, smoking, getting a tattoo, joining the military and whatnot. Getting married, facing capital punishment, being arrested and doing adult time. It's stupid to have people serving in the military and being combat veterans, but they're not allowed to have a glass of beer. That's just asinine. The Germans have our asses kicked in that regard. The age here is 18 apparently, but they have beer machines in Garmisch, and you don't see drunk German teenagers. You just don't see it. I guess it's because it's not forbidden fruit. I lived in Germany when I was with my dad for a summer when I was 16, and I could get beer anytime I wanted. In the first 2 or 3 days, it was really cool. I got drunk every night. After that, it didn't matter. It wasn't, forbidden fruit. But I couldn't drive in Germany like I could in the States because the age was 18. I believe it still is. But nonetheless, those are some differences. I think that the Germans with the unlimited speed limit on the Autobahn, I think that's fantastic. Even though the United States is massively huge and we have a lot of straight open highways, I think going to no speed limits everywhere in the United States on the interstate would be an unmitigated disaster. It's not because of the cars, it's not because of the roads, it's because our drivers have been so dumbed down. Germans seem to know how to drive when they come out of the womb. You have some morons over here, but most people, they use their blinker, they understand lane discipline. I don't see a lot of people running red lights here, not at all. In the United States, it's kind of like a free-for-all in that regard. But if we could get people in the United States to exercise lane discipline and know how to use their blinkers, we should have much higher speed limits. 70, 75 is what it is it's mostly 70, 65 and 70. Some states are 75. I know some are 80, like I think Wyoming, western part of Texas. I think the highest is 80, Utah. But there's one highway in Texas that's privately owned, you can drive 85 on it. But that's because it's a private highway. It's out The federal government didn't have anything to do with it, and taxpayer dollars weren't used on it. But some of the food standards in Germany are better. I noticed that soda pop here seems to taste better because it apparently uses sugar, either from cane sugar or from beet sugar, whereas in the United States they use high fructose corn syrup. I know parking over here seems to be generally worse than in the United States, but that's not really a national thing. That's just because many of the cities in the United States were built well after the automobile. But here in Europe, some of the cities predate the automobile by 1,000 years. So it's a little hard to retrofit things. Mass transit, walking, bike lanes, bus lanes, the Germans have that down pat much better than the Americans do. Although some American cities are really catching up. But where I lived, we were in a semi-rural area and there was no mass transit at all because the county is just too big. There's too much on open land. And to go anywhere, of course, you have to drive your car, which increases congestion. Then people want to get away from the congestion, so they built farther out. And guess what? Then another road has to come in, and then you get urban sprawl. Then they build a bypass. Then they build stuff around the bypass. And then what do they need? A bypass around the bypass. So, some of our urban planning, maybe we could take a page from the Germans. But I just want to say clear out that I love living here. Today, marks 1 year. Actually, tonight about midnight will be a year since we've been in Germany. And we'll probably be here for 2 more years before my wife's term expires. And then we go back home. She'll work in the States remotely for 2 years and then retire for the second time. But nonetheless, it's still a learning experience. I'm a work in progress. I've enjoyed meeting people from all over. Here in Wiesbaden, we have people from, Syria, Russia, Ukraine, Poland, Bulgaria, Romania. There's a couple Brits here. I haven't talked to them too much, but there's some Croatians here. There's some. I saw a flag. I looked it up. It was Finland. There were 2 soldiers here from Finland, and I've seen Norway, Hrvatska, which turns out to be Croatia. I've seen Italians, French. There's a NATO presence here, so you get a pretty wide mixture of different people. But people off post in the community. One of the guys who works for our housing, our apartment, our housemeister, he's from Cameroon, and he speaks better English than I do. He's got the coolest British accent. And I said, "Are you from London?" He goes, "I'm from Cameroon." I'm like, "Oh, wow." So there are a lot of different people here. The guy downstairs from me, he's from Syria. His wife is German. They have a daughter who's 3, and she's speaking English, Arabic, and German. That kid's going to be so far ahead when she gets up into, her teenage years. It's amazing how quickly the kids pick it up. We've got people here. One of our apartment people is from Pakistan. Got a lot of people from Turkey. And it seemed like, you learn a little something from each person. They tell you a little bit about where they came from. I find that some of the very interesting people are the ones who, lived under communist rule. They certainly have some interesting stories to tell. And, they're very curious about, a lot of them haven't been to the United States. They're very curious. So I try and tell them about that. But I think no matter where people are from, you might have an inherent bias. Oh, somebody's from Russia, they have to be a Putin supporter. That's not true. Just like not everybody in the United States supports Joe Biden or Donald Trump. People are individual citizens, and our personal views don't necessarily reflect that of our government, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just in the United States you don't get shot for it like you do in some other places. But anyway, that's enough for today. But I just want to say this is not, I don't mean this to ever be us versus them. I just notice that things are different, and in some ways I find it peculiar, but I'm not saying it's bad, and I'm not here to try and change Germany into the United States. I certainly wouldn't want to do that. I am impressed by how many Germans understand English. Holy smoke. And I've had Germans tell me that they can understand my English, which is kind of a mix of Yankee and Appalachian, but I've had them tell me they can understand my English, but they have trouble understanding British people who speak true English. So go figure. But anyway, that's enough rambling for today. Everybody have a great, I was going to say have a great Wednesday. It's gotten warm again. It's been a little cool for a while, so it is August, so we got to slug it out through the warmer weather. Anyway, take care, people.